In this video, we're doing a deep dive into the Hellfire Club affiliation in a post-War of the Kings world. Hey guys, Rich from Rich Me Gaming. Hope everyone is doing fantastic. Well, welcome to this, another MCP video, and continuing our series where we break down each and every affiliation in the game. In this video, we have got 2H bringing us to the Hellfire Club. And this is a really difficult one because how do we play the Hellfire Club with all the changes that have been made? We don't. Now, of course, I'm only joking. I would never tell anybody that they shouldn't play an affiliation. But it is definitely worth noting. If you've watched any videos from more than 2 or 3 months ago talking about Hellfire Club, and you think, oh, these guys look really good, let me give them a try, or you look at results of previous events over the past 12 months and you saw them winning lots of them, really that is not a barometer for where Hellfire Club are right now. And we talk about looking at affiliations in a post-War of the Kings, but actually we go a little bit further back than that for Hellfire Club, because really we look at pre-February 2025, where they were dominating everywhere, and post-February 2025. And let's just take a quick look at that, because it gives us a really good idea of where Hellfire Club were as an affiliation and where they are now. And if you're thinking about picking up Hellfire Club, then you really need to be aware of the state of play at the moment. So if we were to go to Longshanks is a great resource, by the way, not only for looking and, setting up and booking and running tournaments. It also collates all of these stats from those tournaments. And basically it does it for the past 12 months. When you go in and you look at statistics, there's a leaderboard for win rates by each affiliation. So if you go in there and look at it right now, this is a snapshot from about an hour and a half ago. And you can see over the past 12 months, Hellfire Club are at the top. 1,400 games, so not the most played affiliation by any stretch of the imagination, but a win rate of 57%, which is bonkers, absolutely bonkers. Not the highest that we've ever had. Like some affiliations in the past have been up to 60% plus, especially some individual leaders, but still very good. But let's break this down. So this is the past 12 months. Let's break it down from everything February and before. So this is the period of time where some changes hadn't come into play. And it's even better, right? So it's, 1,297 games, but a 59% win rate. So they were touching, almost reaching that 60%, better than Asgard, as you can see in there, and we all know how Asgard were, and yes, there was more Asgard games, but definitely up there with one of the best affiliations in the game. Now let's look at everything post-February, and this paints a very different picture. So you can see only 91 games played. And by the way, these numbers might not add up correctly, because the way that Longshanks does it is it rounds it to the nearest Wednesday when you put a date in. So I might have got the date slightly wrong, but it doesn't change the view and where they are right now. So they've gone from the number 1 ranked affiliation in the game, dropping down all the way to 24th. with a 42% win rate. So that is a huge fall from grace, to say the least. Now, you may be asking, well, War of the Kings can't have been that bad with the new, losing some of the old crisis and getting some new ones. Like, surely it hasn't affected a single affiliation this badly. And no, it hasn't. The reason that these guys are in such a position is not this card here. This is their old leadership card. So it says, when this is included in your squad, if your squad is unaffiliated and includes Emma Frost and this card, you may play this card. So basically, Emma with the Hellfire Club had an affiliation that was like Dormammu, it was like Dracula, it was like Mephisto, where she could bring anybody that she wanted, meaning that we had a 4-cost leader that could bring just all of the broken stuff in the game. And you have to remember, a lot of these games that made up that 59% included cards like Eyes on the Prize. It included cards like Advanced R&D, where you could do a whole bunch of shenanigans. Now, her actual leadership itself hasn't changed. So if we take a look, the Queen's White Pawns, which is the name of her leadership. So basically, what does her leadership do? Once per round at the end of an allied character's activation, so any of your character's activations, she may use this card. All other allied characters, so not herself, that are contesting or holding objective tokens gain 1 power and remove 1 damage. Okay, so if they're contesting or holding an objective token, they get to gain a power and they get to remove a damage. All other allied characters that are not contesting or holding an objective lose 1 power and suffer 1 damage. Emma Frost gains 1 power for each power lost in this way and may remove 1 damage for each damage suffered in this way. Now, to be honest with you, this card is never really being about getting damage and power onto Emma. The first part is fine. Like, it's just fine. Like, they gain a power and remove a damage. It's a nice little standard of life thing. It's not the greatest leadership the world has ever seen by any stretch of the imagination. But the powerful part of it was the fact that she could bring absolutely anybody. There was nobody in her affiliation list other than herself, so she could take any characters. That has now changed, and she now has a standard affiliation list, just like the vast majority of other affiliations in the game, as I say, with the exception of Dormammu, which I'm fine with. Like, Dormammu's an 8-cost, so you need that flexibility, and anybody works under him. Mephisto and Dracula. Arguments as to whether or not they should be allowed to do the same thing, but it is what it is. But because Emma was a 4-cost leader, the others are 5s each and then 8. But because she was a 4-cost, it made it very, very easy just to take all of the broken things that you want to use. And as you can see, this card doesn't let you do that anymore. So she's gone from being able to take absolutely anybody that she wants to having a fixed roster of characters with a mediocre at best leadership that actually takes up a card slot. Now, I'm glad for some of the changes that they've made here, but I think one of the things that they should have given Emma was the convocation treatment, which is this card is counted as in your 10, but when you build your roster, it counts as one of your 10 tactics cards. But when you build your squad, this doesn't count towards one of your 5. So you get your 5 standard tactics cards that you can bring, and then this is an extra one. That isn't the case. So it means that to play this, you are losing another tactics card. And I've got to be honest with you, I don't know if this leadership is good enough to justify losing a tactics card. But we are here to talk about Hellfire Club. So let's go through and let's take a quick look then at Emma. This is the other problem, was Emma was never the linchpin that was pulling everything together, because she did so many really good things. Obviously, there isn't a leadership to go through on this card because we don't do full character breakdowns. A couple of things to note that are nice, things that you can potentially play into. Power inhibition, meaning that enemy characters can't use superpowers or reactive team cards during her turn. That means that if you do have, if you do anything with her, then your opponent can't do anything to stop it, at least using reactives or, reactive superpowers or reactive team tactics cards. But if you also had other characters in your list that can do things out of turn, usually using tactics cards, then it stops that as well. Sorry, it means that you can use those. So the example that always gets thrown around is Juggernaut, where he can spend the power and throw a size 4 building at somebody, right? Your opponent wouldn't be able to use Brace for Impact during that. And that is one route that we could have gone down when we were building our list, but the problem is there's nobody really in affiliation that offers any of those things. So whilst, yes, it is a route we could have gone down, it means that we're putting in suboptimal splash characters just to do that one thing. So yeah, we haven't gone down that route when we put our final roster together. She does have a different form. So she's got her diamond form, where she does become immune to quite a lot of things: bleed, incinerate, poison, stun. She can't be pushed. She can't play tactics cards during this turn. Now, I believe, and I'm almost 100% certain, that she can still use her leadership, because that's a leadership that she's gained. It's almost like it's on her card. So she's already played the tactics card at the beginning of the game, and now she's just using the ability that's on the tactics card. So she can still use that leadership. It doesn't stop you from being able to use it. But obviously the thing with Emma's leadership is she doesn't need to use it during just her turn. She can use it at the end of any character's activation. It is important it is the end. You don't get to do it at the beginning. So that means that, if you need an extra power in the middle of somebody's turn, then hey, you're not going to be able to get that, because you have to wait until the end of their activation to be able to do it. So far, we've got an affiliation that is currently at a 42% win rate. We've got an affiliation that has a suboptimal leadership, with a downside as well as an upside. It's a leadership that uses one of your tactics cards, both in your 10 and in your 5, and a leader that isn't the best 4 threat in the game. So let's take a look then at some of the other characters, or all of the models, all of the characters that are in affiliation with her. In fact, before we do that, let's take a look at the tactics cards that Emma brings, because her leadership card is the only tactics card for Hellfire Club. This is one of the other problems they have. They don't have any affiliated tactics cards, meaning that you are relying on characters for the most part that bring tactics cards, because the vast majority of, generic ones, they're being slowly whittled out of the game. So you need characters that bring tactics cards as well. So her first one, Mind Transfer. This is really, really interesting and can, in a pinch, completely change a game. So during Emma Frost's activation, she may spend 4 power to play this card. Choose an enemy character with an activated token within 3 of Emma Frost. Move an activated token from the chosen character to another enemy character that does not have an activated token. So the best case scenario for something like this is your opponent goes first and they take a turn with, I don't know who, right? A 2-threat character of your choice. You can then activate Emma. You can get within range 3. you can spend 4 power. And let's say then that they have a big hitter that they've been holding back, right? A Gladiator or a Hulk or an Eye Hulk or, whatever 6+, 5+ threat character they've got that is going to cause you some real problems. Well, as long as they're within range 2 of the character that you've chosen, you can transfer that activated token onto them. Now, there are lots of attacks in the game, or a number of attacks in the game, that will give somebody an activated token. And whilst they can be really good, right, turning off a character for a round is exceptionally good, especially if it is a big character. But often it's just delaying the inevitable, because what will happen then is your opponent will have priority during the next round, more than likely, because it's the equivalent of dazing a character before they activate. Chances are is that you're going to give your opponent priority. You don't get that with this because you've removed that activated token off that other character. They get to go again, so you're not messing up with the numbers. It could be used, right, if there's somebody who you want to target, okay, and you want to take them out or daze them. Again, you can use this for that same way. You can put an activated token on them before you attack them, meaning that they don't count towards the numbers when it comes to working out who's going to get priority, at the end of the game. So there's a few different ways for it. The problem with this card is it's televised, right? It's very televised. So all your opponent needs to do to make sure that you can't even use this card is keep everyone more than range 2 away from each other on their side of the board, which can be an annoyance, right? Let's say that you've got Avengers and it's Steve and it's Hulk, Steve 1 and Hulk. Well, you usually want to keep Steve within range 2 of Hulk, because Steve will take the blows for him. But it's an okay card. It's just very situational, it's very televised, and it's very easy to get around. But if your opponent does make a mistake, you can punish them severely for it. Untapped Potential is a team-up card with Iceman. Iceman isn't even in the Hellfire Club. Excuse me, I just whacked my own microphone then. Iceman isn't even in the Hellfire Club list, which means that you're bringing an Iceman as a splash, which Iceman's fine, but, you're not seeing him splashed everywhere for a really good reason. So, yeah, whilst it's one of her other cards, not really viable. So let's take a look then at some of the characters that we have in affiliation. And I'm going to focus on the ones that I think are the better ones that we can potentially use. And then we'll go through the rest as well. So starting off then, we have got Angel, Warren Worthington III. He's a 3 threat. He's fine. He's fine. And you're going to see this. This is going to be a recurring theme. Okay. He's fine. Now, synergy with the leadership. If you can somehow get another power onto him, let's say that you decide to bring a Wong or somebody like that. He does have airlift, so during its activation, when this character begins a move action within 2 of another allied character, size 2 or less, that's also another mitigating factor, it may use this superpower. After your move action to resolve, place that allied character within 2 of its current position. What does that mean? Well, that means that you can potentially get another character onto a back point near an objective before they've activated, meaning that when you trigger the Hellfire leadership, that character is going to get an extra power. So what does that mean? Well, that means if it is a character like Gladiator, for example, who is size 2 and can be moved by Angel, that means that he's going to start the game on 3 power, meaning that he gets to do his charge, meaning that he can start that spiral of being able to just do more and more damage. So that's quite nice, right? We're trying to find some little snippets here of what we can do to try and just make our game that little bit better. We've also got Archangel, so two of her characters, because she doesn't have that many, two of her characters can't be used together because they're both Warren Worthington III. Archangel is a bit more on the offensive side. Chosen of Apocalypse is quite nice for damage output. Wing Shield, he's got some ability to mitigate damage in there as well. He can dish out a stagger with Avatar of Death, and it only costs 3 power. And if we're pumping an extra power into him every round, then again that's quite nice. So yeah, Archangel is again perfectly fine. He's only got 5 stamina on his front, which is rough for a 4 threat, but hey ho. Both of these characters bring a number of different tactics cards. First of all, we've got Ultimate Sacrifice on Angel. When an allied character within range 2 of an allied angel is targeted by an enemy attack, Angel may spend 2 power to play this card. Angel becomes the target of the attack regardless of range and line of sight. And then if he's dazed or KO'd, you may remove up to 3 damage and all special conditions from the allied characters. So that would be the allied character that was the original target of the attack. Now he does have a card that plays into this quite nicely as well, which is Fallen. So basically, when Angel would flip his stat card to the injured side, so this happens during the cleanup phase, okay? If Archangel is not in your squad, push all enemy characters within range 2 of Angel away. Now, Archangel, I'm trying to think if there's any way of having Archangel in your squad, maybe with Mr. Sinister, right? Because that's cloning banks and that would work. But effectively, you get to upgrade, okay, your 3-cost Angel to Archangel. You get to push everybody away, you give them bleed, but you do flip his stat card to the injured side, okay? He gains all the power that Angel had, but effectively you're upgrading to a 4 threat. So you're getting a slightly better character, depending on what your gameplay is and what you want to do. So that's quite nice, right? There's nice synergy between them, but, okay, there is a but. The problem here is we have to use 2 of our tactics card slots to make this work, okay? So this is going to be a problem because it means that we only have 2 slots left, because one of them needs to be Hellfire Club. And you can see here that all these little things make it more and more difficult. Archangel brings Death from Above. He may spend 2 power to play this card if he's overlapping a terrain feature, okay? And then basically this turn, when he attacks a character that is not overlapping a terrain feature of a lesser size than the terrain feature Archangel was overlapping when this card was played, add 2 dice to the attack roll, okay? So basically, Archangel's standing on a size 3 building. Your opponent stood on the floor. You get to add 2 dice to your attack roll, okay? And that's both of your attacks. So if you do use his charge, for example, if you end up being at the same level, that doesn't matter, because the only thing that matters is where you were when you played this card. It's fine. Like it's absolutely fine. Battlebound. When Archangel begins a move action within 3 of an allied Psylock during his activation, he may spend 2 power to play this card. When Archangel ends his move, place Psylock within 1 of him. Psylock may immediately perform one of her attacks that has a listed power cost of 0. And we'll get onto Psylock in a moment. You can use this with charge as well. Okay, so you can spend 4 power and do this with charge. And then effectively, you're able to make 3 attacks during that round and get Psylock up the board. So it's fine. like, again, it's fine. It's a little bit of a drop off, or whatever the drop off's the old one, whatever the A-Force one is called now. I always forget. But yeah, it's fine, and fine is kind of the tone for this. So yeah, let's take a quick look at Psylock. Psylock is actually one of the better characters in Affiliation, I would say. Maybe the best character in Affiliation. She does bring some quite nice attacks. She can advance with the telekinetic combat enhancement. She's got stealth as well, which can be quite nice. She's got the stealth martial artist mix, so your enemy needs to be outside of 2 but within 3, which can make it difficult sometimes. So yeah, like, again, she isn't the greatest 4 threat in the game, but I think she's one of the better characters in Hellfire Club. She also brings some tactics cards. Crimson Dawn is quite nice. Spend 3 power when she flips to the injured side. And then basically she gets Mark of the Crimson Dawn, where she gets healing factor 1, but at the beginning of this character's activation, at the beginning of this character's activation and after each of its actions, this character may place within 1. So she gets a range 1 place at the beginning. Then if she does an attack, she gets another range 1 place. Then if she makes a move, or, let's say removes a bleed or something like that, she gets another range 1 place. So 3 guaranteed range 1 places, and the reason it's guaranteed is even if you shake stagger, that is an action, so you still get a range 1 place. She does get around the board quite a lot, and it's quite nice. She got another card, Psionic Constructs. Again, we're looking at the cards here because these are really what are going to try and make it work for us. With an allied character within 3 of an allied Psylock targets an enemy character, Psylock may spend 2 power to play this card. The attack type is now Mystic. The allied character may reroll any number of dice during this attack. This is really nice. This is quite nice. So just basically, if you've got a character who's weak to Mystic, you're doing a big attack and you get to reroll any dice, then, it's fine. Fine. You're going to hear me say fine quite a lot. Now, I want to address Mr. Sinister, because this is another character. And I was looking at what I could do with Mr. Sinister in Hellfire Club, with, in particular, cloning banks and forced extraction. Is this somewhere that we could make this work? And I did the math on it, and the honest answer is no. It's still no. Even though with that forced extraction, everyone's going to take a damage, right? Or 3 people are going to take a damage. You can mitigate that damage, okay, because you are able to heal that back using her leadership. So I was like, okay, maybe there's something here with it. But again, you work the math out and the threat levels and things like that. Because you need double the amount of tokens and you can only start playing them during the cleanup phase. It's just rough, right? It's really, really rough. So I don't recommend it, but I wanted to just highlight the fact that I did take a look at him for this. And then rounding out the rest of the affiliation. And it's fair to say that this is a list of not very good characters in the game. Now, we know there is an update coming, okay? So I'm looking at characters like Magneto, Shadow King, Omega Red even, where they are, at least Omega Red and Magneto, long overdue a bit of a bump, okay? So maybe there's something there that could work. Maybe there is something there that could work. But realistically, this is a rough list. And I remember playing what were they called? Red Guardians lot, Winter Guard, for a long time. And it was a similar, I mean, a much smaller list, right? Because for a long time, there was only 4 characters in that affiliation. One of them was amazing, one of them was acceptable, and the other 2 were and still are not very good in the form of Ursa Major and Darkstar. And it's a very, very similar situation. I mean, let's go through these. Omega Red, like as a 4 threat, he's doing nothing that's synergizing or really helping with any of these, right? Maybe he's a size 3, so we can't even bump him up and get him the extra power. Magneto as a 6 cost. As a leader, he's struggling. Without his leadership, he is completely useless in the game. Cassandra Nova is fine, but again, she's a 5 cost and she's just fine. Again, could be another character that is in the mix for getting a little bit of a bump. Mystique, again, is fine. You know, she's also got the shapeshifter thing that means your opponent can't use reactive or active superpowers. So, you know, you could double up on that side of it. But realistically, ever since she lost her card, she's just not very good anymore. Shadow King might be up there with one of the worst characters in the game. Storm, again, is fine, but really you're only playing her with the leadership. And then the other one is Sunspot. And I think Sunspot is probably the best of the rest. And the problem we have is we can't just rely on splash characters, because we have to be at, over 50% of our characters need to be affiliated, and that causes some problems. So let's jump over. Let's take a look at the list that I've put together, and you'll get an idea of what we're going for and the sort of play style and things like that. So yeah, let's jump over, let's take a look, and we'll go through things. Okay guys, so here we go. Now, preface this with, this is what I've put together. I haven't had chance to do any play testing or anything like that, but this is just one little route that I'm thinking of that you could potentially go down. So what have we got in here? Well, let's start with the actual affiliated characters. So we do have Angel, we do have Archangel, we've also got Emma Frost, we've got Psylock, we've got Sunspot. So we are bringing 5 characters with us. And then we've got 5 splash characters for us to be able to bring. Well, I say 5 splash characters. I've also brought Taskmaster. Now, why Taskmaster? Well, he gives us another 3 threat in affiliated character because of the rogue agent. So he just gives us a little bit more flexibility. And if I'm going to be honest, I think when I look at the other 3 threat that is available to us, which is, I think it was only Mystique, if I remember off the top of my head, let me double check. Angel, Archangel, yeah, it was only Mystique. I think Taskmaster is a better option, just overall. So what does our core look like? Because this is where it gets really interesting, or really, really strange. So obviously, we have to take Emma every single game, okay? Let's go through these others first of all. So we brought Gladiator, and we've brought some ways to be able to try and make Gladiator viable for us. We've got Namor. He's going to be our midline extract grab. We've also brought Toad for a second safe grab, and a play into one of the extracts. And then we brought Wong. Wong's there let's say we don't need to worry about the midline extract grab. And we can use Wong to basically get a power into Gladiator or into somebody else. So we can, maybe a Psylock. So we can start to do other things, or maybe even an Angel, so we can get him up the board, or use his airlift on somebody at the beginning of the turn or something like that. Let's take a look then at the crisis cards that we've brought. So these are going to be Mutant Madmen at 18 threat, Superpowered Scoundrels at 20, Wedding Party targeted in terrible action at 20, Deadly Legacy Virus cured at 19, Fear Grips at 18, and then Montesi Formula at 18 as well. Now, let's say we get Deadly Legacy Virus, okay, and we're playing at 19 threat. What we're probably looking at is something along these lines. Maybe we can do something like this, and then we've got 5 threat left over, which would probably mean, in fact, we probably wouldn't even need to take him, right? We can probably play something like this, or switch out Sunspot for Archangel, something like that. But we're staying within the boundaries. We've got our 3 affiliated, but then we've got 2 midline extract grabbers. Typically, you probably want to choose your own. You want to choose your own extracts if you win priority. Why is that important? Well, let's say it's Deadly Legacy Virus. We can have, let's just zoom in here, but we deploy Namor on one side of the board, we deploy Toad on the other, and basically we can safely take 2 of the 3, or safely-ish with the Toad one, but reasonably safely with 2 of the 3, meaning that we're going to have that potential VP advantage going into round 2. We can also do some shenanigans. So at 18 threat, for example, we can play something like this. And let's say we're playing at 20, right? So we might even have a Toad in there as well. But what we can do is use Wong to put a power onto Angel. Wong moves up, goes to a back point, wherever it may be. Angel can then use Airlift to get Gladiator up, so he's contesting a point. And then when we use Emma's ability, which is here, it's going to give not only give Gladiator an extra power, but it's going to allow him to be able to do for the Empress and Empire, but he's also further up the board as well, meaning that he can get way past that midline point to be able to make his attacks. There's also some nice synergy between Angel and Gladiator as well, because of the fact that we have brought with us Ultimate Sacrifice, meaning that we've got at least one protection in there for as long as we keep Gladiator within 2 of Angel. We also did bring Sacrifice for the same thing as well. So yeah, there's a couple of different plans that we can go with. We've got the more attrition focused style here, and again, this is really where Taskmaster is coming into play, because he allows us to flex and use different ones, right? So again, if we were playing at 18 threat and it was a more extract focus, 17 threat, we could also do something like this, and we'd have the 2, one very safe, another safe-ish midline extract grab in there as well. So we do get a bit of flexibility. We are trying to mitigate the level of our inaffiliated characters by bringing some better splash characters with us. So it does give us a few options. cards then, we've got Battlebound, right? We are bringing Archangel and Psylock, and it can be a nice little thing. Again, we've got some synergy here as well, because, you know, we can, if we just do this again, oh, we don't need him. If we're playing, you know, this gives us 14 threat, and we've got our 3 inaffiliated characters. 1 can give a power to Archangel turn 1, meaning that when we can use Battlebound turn 1, which is, you know, which is quite nice. Gets Psylock up the board and allows us to, you know, do some damage. I would say this is more of a reactive turn when your opponent has committed somebody up the board. But again, so, you know, you hold it back until later on. But again, the nice thing about Wong is he's a bit of a dud activation, if you like. Or even if we have priority, right, we can use a Namor to get up the board and do some things for us. Or if we want to go wider, we can still then bring in Taskmaster and then bring in a Toad or something like that as well. So again, we've got a couple of options. This also works if we go up to 20 threat as well, and we can bring Gladiator in here as well. But again, I think if we're in this situation, I do much prefer this setup where we can give the power to Angel and then get Gladiator up the board. So what else have we got? Brace for Impact. We've got Crimson Dawn. We've got Fallen. Mind Transfer. Obviously, we've brought Hellfire Club. We've got Prince's Protection. We've got Protector of the Empire. That's the card for Gladiator. This is the one that is going to allow him to spend 3 power and basically attack somebody, make a medium move and attack somebody if they daze or KO a character. Sacrifice, again, we already spoke about, you know, Sacrifice and Ultimate Sacrifice are really in there for a Gladiator, you know, with an Angel or any other. Obviously, Prince's Protection is doing the same thing, but I don't really see a world where we're going to be able to bring both of these in. You know, the only option for us would be, there is no option for us. Yeah, there is no option in there to ever be able to play Namor and Gladiator together just because of the threat level. So yeah, there we go, guys. That is the roster I have put together. I'm not going to lie, this has been one of the more difficult ones. But you'll see that even with an affiliation that looks on the, you know, that looks like it's just no good whatsoever, there's always little bits that you can find, little synergies that you can find between characters that can work quite well. Those 5 splash characters that I've brought in there are obviously completely interchangeable, right? You could go down the other route and bring somebody like a Juggernaut, or, you know, somebody who has an out of activation ability or tactics card that they can use that your opponent just can't stop when it's Emma's turn. But this is the route that I decided to go down. But if you are out there playing Hellfire Club, let us know down in the comment section below where you've had success. There are so many affiliations in the game now that it's just so difficult to keep track of and play with all of them. And as I say, hands up, I haven't been able to get any playtime with this one. I am going to try it out, though, see how it does play. But yeah, let us know down in the comment section below if you've got any hints and tips for everybody out there and what you would recommend. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video. And as always, I want to give a big shout out to our Patreon members, our YouTube followers, also our YouTube followers, but our YouTube members. And also anybody who supported the channel by purchasing merch. You'll find links down in the description below for the merch and for Patreon, and you can press that join button to become a member from as little as £1 a month to be able to support the channel in that way. But as always, you don't need to do any of that. Just simply liking, commenting, subscribing really does go a long, long way to helping the channel. I'm back now. I'm doing these videos more regularly, so hopefully you guys appreciate that. Really looking forward. You know, we got the Shatterpoint updates yesterday. Really looking forward to getting the MCP updates. Maybe later today, maybe next week. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But rest assured, we will be doing a breakdown video on that as well. And who knows? maybe Hellfire Club become absolutely amazing once that video goes live, but I wouldn't hold out hope. Guys, check out the Discord. We're going to be doing our event for June, where you'll be able to try out all of the new characters that get updates or nerfs in the May release that we're going to see very, very soon. So go check that out. Best way to do that is checking out the Discord. Again, link down in the description below. Shout out to Leodis Games, sponsor of the channel. Offer down below for £5 off your first order of £50 or more. And as always, guys, it leaves me with just enough time to say stay well, keep safe, and until next time, bye for now.